Hello, Erin.
Hi, Bill.
You are not Matt.
I am not Matt, that's for sure.
So we're having a special Mother's Day edition of the DMZ. Matt's going to take the week off, but his wonderful wife, Erin, is in his stead, and we're going to discuss, as Matt and I sometimes do, not because parenthood is not the sole province of mothers. Matt and I often discuss liberal and conservative parenting to start off the show, but we thought it would be interesting to have a full show about it in honor of Mother's Day and to get your take on modern life as a conservative parent. But why don't you tell the folks what you do during the day besides parenting?
Oh, what I do besides parenting and being the wife to Matt Lewis. I guess it's a minor thing on what I do. I have a consulting firm, and I raise money for candidates who run for Congress, for governor, for mostly federal office, but occasionally some state-based races. So I am a professional fundraiser.
And this is full time. You are a full-blown 100% working mother.
Oh yes, 100% working. After both.
It's not just like a little hobby on the side.
Not a hobby. Pays the bills, and I will even say that after. First we have two children. I'm sure Matt has mentioned that, and after both kids, the first child, Burke, I did a major gala for about 300 people 2 weeks after giving birth, and after giving birth to Beckett, about 3 weeks later, I did a pretty major fundraiser for a client. So when you are a consultant, you don't get something called maternity leave. Unless because you have to.
You could give your own maternity leave if you so chose.
I could. Then I would have to start all over because I don't really think I have great clients. They can't stop working for me. They can't stop doing their job and just wait for me because I am. It's just me. It's not like I have 10 other people working for me. So, but it's all right. We've learned to adapt.
Now, 40 years ago, when the debate around women's rights was really raging,
Mm-hmm.
There was obviously the main conservative argument often was that women shouldn't be in the workplace and we should have distinct gender roles, and this is going to be bad for kids if women were working. And I am presuming you are not anomalous in modern conservative Washington. You're not a rare working mother. Is that an accurate assumption on my part, or has there been a real sea change in attitudes about women's work amongst modern conservatives?
I think it's normal in a city, and especially in Washington, for conservative women to work. I do have many friends who stay at home with their young children. I am blessed in being a consultant that I don't have to necessarily be at one desk for 9 hours a day. I can slip home. I may have an event in the evening, which may mean I can spend a little time at home in the morning. I will say, probably like you, Bill, Matt has a little flexibility in when he has to write and do something so that he might be able to be home in an afternoon when I have to do an event.
Right.
I was raised by a stay-at-home mom. She had 4 children, but I wouldn't call her just stay-at-home. She was very active politically. She ran the state chapter of Eagle Forum, which is Phyllis Schlafly's group, as a volunteer, but that's still work. And she just didn't think, what am I going to make for lunch today? I think her motto, and whether it was official or not, was, how am I going to make a difference in the world? So now
Schlafly, of course, was a major antagonist to the Gloria Steinems and the Betty Friedands.
That would be a way to describe her. That would be a way to describe Phyllis. And
so
Phyllis,
does your mom have any kind of opinion about your work lifestyle choices?
No, I think she's totally fine with it. I do spend a lot of time with the kids. And I think she sees this is a different time and place, and is totally fine with what I do. And she is more than happy to babysit because these are her only grandchildren. So it works well for both of us.
On the liberal side of the pool, yes. there are always parenting debates that are raging, and there is a trend towards what is called attachment parenting, which argues that you should essentially be with the child pretty much at all times. I'm obviously being very simplistic and crude about it because I think it's a lot more nuanced than that. But there is a degree of backlash to that attitude among some of the so-called second wave feminists who have some have read articles saying, what are you guys doing? We spent all this time so you wouldn't have to be anchored to your child. You could go have careers and get out of the house, and now this modern push is to keep you at home and keep you saddled. What are you doing? And I think the response has been, wait, I thought this was about choice, not, no one's saying that you have to stay home with your kid if you want to. But people who feel like I'm going to do a better job raising my child by getting off of the career track and spending more time at home, and I want to have laws and policies that allow me the flexibility to do that and be able to get back into the workforce when I'm ready. And that's where our focus should be, because often women are being held back career-wise because they make such a choice, or policies aren't established that allow them flexibility over time, so the flex time schedules and stuff like that. Sure. So I see these debates going on the left a lot. I don't know what kind of debates go on among conservative parents, if these things are even prioritized, or if it's just not what conservatives are focused on right now.
I would say, at least among my group of friends, I have quite a few that stay at home with their children. And then many that work, I don't know that it's necessarily debate. I say the women that stay at home, they've made that choice. It's not that someone told them they had to. And there are times, I think every mom goes through this conflict that they would love to spend all day with their kids, but it's just not meant to be in their situation. And I think women definitely feel a pull. I mean, when I go, for instance, this weekend we went to the zoo with the boys. And would I love to do that with them every day and see the wonder and amazement on their faces when they see the gorillas and all these animals? Yes, but I can't do that every day and provide for them as well. I don't know that there's the debate so much about attachment parenting in the conservative circles, but I will say I follow a lot of sort of moms, lactation consultants, nurses on Twitter who totally focus on raising babies. And excuse me, I'm a cold. And they
par for the course.
Yes, I know, with 2 children under 2. What a shock. I think there's more of a crunchy con type of mom, where they may be a pro-life conservative woman, but they want to exclusively breastfeed their child. They want to, make sure that they have organic bedding and eat organic food, but they actually lean right on some other issues. And it's actually amazing to see these women out there that I didn't even know existed until I started following them on Twitter.
Now, I know, I think on the left there is a big push. There's a big pro-breastfeeding push on the left. There have been campaigns to change laws to allow for public breastfeeding, to not be arrested for a decent exposure if you're breastfeeding in public. There's workplace pushes to allow for office breastfeeding and things like that. And this is an issue that you told me ahead of time you've grown an increased awareness about, increased interest in.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest changes in our modern society, especially with women going to work and the invention of formula, is they don't know what they're getting into when they're breastfeeding. They may take a pre-birth class that covers it a little bit, but they don't know the time, the energy, the effort that goes into it, and that is actually the best thing for their child. Right now, I have a 5-month-old. I exclusively breastfeed him. and I work full time, which means I schlep around a Medela pump in and out of Republican committees. I have no problem looking at a client and saying, I'm sorry, I have to go pump. I'll be back in 15 to 20 minutes. I mean, I don't drop any major work, but, you know, I try to arrange meetings, events, just around it so that I can slip away. If I was at a major corporate office, I think there would even have to be a lactation room, which is a great thing. And I would hope that companies would see the value in having something like that. But being a consultant where I have to run around and do meetings, I find myself in bathrooms many times pumping.
Now, does that make you unusual in conservative Washington? Or is this not really a left-right thing, Washington? It's just it's an urban thing. In modern cities, people do that, and people don't raise an eyebrow at it anymore, or do they?
I think it's a tad bit of an urban thing, but I think it's harder for urban women to continue to breastfeed. The World Health Organization recommends that babies be exclusively breastfed till 6 months. I mean, that is sort of a standard, you know, nothing else, no solids, just pure breast milk for the first 6 months. Then you introduce solids and continue to nurse them for the next 6 months to a year. And I think the modernization of our culture makes that tough and makes them say, well, why can't you just give them formula? And there you don't have to be quote unquote burdened. I actually enjoy nursing my son and spending that time with him. And I know that there's nothing better than breast milk for him. So I feel, though, that sometimes society goes, well, isn't there an alternative? Couldn't you just give him formula? And I think that's one of the downsides in being in a modern world where science supposedly can outdo nature. And I say supposedly because I don't think that's the case. And don't get me wrong, there are women who just can't physically nurse their child, and they may need to give them formula. But I think if you try, and if we better prepare mothers for it, they'll have a more success rate, and it's better for the baby in the end.
Now, you raised something that I think, you know, even though I do think there's this big pro breastfeeding push, which I support, you support. Mm-hmm. There is a backlash to that from people who say, wait a second, some of us we're physically incapable, you know, or we have, you know, an adopted child where nursing is not possible. Or it's just my choice. I am a working mother. I want to get back into the workforce as early as I can. And it's a lot easier for me to do that if I have the formula option. So don't judge my choices. You know, you can wave all the scientific data you want, but this is my choice. I don't think it's as compelling an argument as you make it out to be, so you can get off my back. Don't be so judgmental. There's always judging in parenting discussions, of course.
Yes, yes.
But is that something you are cautious about when you discuss the issue?
Sure, it's never a judgmental thing. I think just society as a whole, we used to be a society where you had mothers and grandmothers teach their daughters and be around them. And now we are always separated from our extended families. And honestly, I mean, I've worked with some great doctors and nurses and loved mine, but they're not prepared. They're not lactation consultants. And I just know so many people in their hospital experience that just had such a bad start because they didn't have that expert to help them. I mean, I am the biggest believer in a lactation consultant. I love the woman I use. Anytime I meet a pregnant woman, I go, do you have a lactation consultant yet? Let me make a recommendation. I think as a society, we've seen this as, okay, it involves the breast. Therefore, it's something we don't want to talk about. And we're mammals. Mammals means that we feed our young via the breast. And I think you can do it modestly. You know, all weekend I nurse my son. That does not mean I go around shirtless all weekend, but you can do it. I don't also wear a burqa when I nurse him, but it's, I think there is a balance, and it does blow my mind that's, we've had to make laws so that you could breastfeed in public. But, that just goes to show you how far we have to go.
You were saying before, you were really concerned at how the formula companies market themselves, both in America and abroad in third world countries. And just as an anecdote, there's someone who I'm friends with, and when his wife had her baby, there were complications, and I think the baby was premature, and he was saying, I spent all this time campaigning against Nestle, criticizing their marketing practices for formula, putting formula in the third world, and lo and behold, I needed Nestle formula for my wife to be able to keep our baby alive after the baby was born. Such is the irony of the world. But it doesn't negate the point that just as formula is necessary in some circumstances, it can be oversold and pushed upon people with misleading campaigns that doesn't actually serve their interests.
No, exactly. If you go and register at Target or Buy Baby or Babies R Us, somehow these companies buy your information, and we received many packets from them promoting the use of formula. This is before the babies were born. And then afterwards, they sent us samples. The pediatrician's office is giving you samples. And one of the formula companies even uses this motto, like strong moms. Like, if you use this, you will be a strong mom. And let's be honest, when you've just had a baby, you are sleep deprived. You aren't yourself. You, maybe not feel, you may be a little bit clouded, and it's easy to fall prey to these marketing practices. And there's no one ever sending you anything like, do you need lactation help, a support group, any questions? It's always one-sided. And what worries me even more, because we are a modern country, we have some of the best healthcare in the world, but I've been following, and you can follow them on Twitter. It's a group called Save Your Children, or Save Our Children, and they are nonpartisan and nonprofit, and they care about raising healthy babies into growing kids. And now these formula companies are going into third world, impoverished countries like India, and telling their healthcare medical providers to recommend formula. Well, if you are in a country or in a town where you can't get clean water yourself, or there may be only 1 or 2 places to get clean water, how are you going to make formula for a baby 8 times a day to 12 times a day when you don't have access to clean water, and then that baby gets sick? The best thing for that child is probably to be breastfed. And it does worry me, and I'm glad this group, Save the Children, is they're working with celebrities to go and promote breastfeeding in these countries, because that's going to save these babies more than formula will. So,
now do you call yourself a crunchy con?
Do I call myself a crunchy con? Probably. I don't know that I would necessarily describe myself that, but I do shop at Whole Foods. I do buy organic foods. We only have one.
You're like Matt. You listen to NPR.
Who do you think got Matt into NPR, Bill? We have Bill. Get this.
Okay, you're a crunchy con. It's settled.
We have one car, Bill. Only one car. I mean, can you believe it?
Is it a hybrid?
It is not a hybrid, but it is one car.
Well, maybe you have a little work to do. But as you show some, you have a sensitivity to these issues, an awareness of the issues. You have a desire to try to solve these problems. Mm-hmm. Does it create an internal conflict? Because Matt has also told you that you're probably more conservative than he is.
Yes, I'm married to Squish, right?
do you see these issues and say, you know what, I think we have to pass a law. There needs to be some kind of government regulation to solve this problem, or does it not force you to jump ship? Do you think, you know, we can use, you know, private sector pressure tactics, vote with our feet, boycotts. We don't need government to get involved to solve, you know, a misleading marketing situation like this.
Right. Well, here in the U.S., I may not like the marketing tactics, but I feel at least the women that are my peers, they are smart enough to make the decision for themselves. I don't judge someone if they want to use formula. I just am surprised at the rate that people do and don't breastfeed, because I think they just don't have the resources to know. Do I think there needs to be laws? I haven't had that feeling. If anything, I just try to promote, you know, the lactation consultants or resources to any of the women I run into. I mean, I run into women that are pregnant all the time, and I literally say, oh, have you heard of, you know, this group or that group? And for instance, there is a great organization in Massachusetts, Bill. They are called ISIS Parenting. ISIS Parenting. And they're more in the Boston area. And I wish I had found them on Twitter when I had Burke. They have a great nurse and lactation consultant named Nancy Holtzman. She is on Twitter. She answers questions. She does webinars on sleeping and breastfeeding every week. And it is one of the best resources I've ever seen. And I continue to tell people about that. I actually am jealous that there are no ISIS centers in the DC area. So Nancy, if you're listening, please hear my pleas and open one up here, because the great people of Massachusetts needs to share their knowledge. And I don't think there's any law that says, you know, ISIS must be operating. But I think if you show people that there is a need, there will be a market demand, you know. So I haven't found the need for a law, but I'm glad there are support groups like ISIS and the nonprofits like Save the Children or Save Our Children that will spend the time and energy and resources on these matters.
I'm probably getting us off topic, but I'm kind of fascinated by the whole crunchy con, you know.
Although I am having a Starbucks drink right now, you'll see.
Do you live closer to a Starbucks or a Walmart?
Oh, I live in Alexandria, Virginia. I live probably closer to 3 Starbuckses than I'll ever to a Walmart.
Because this book came out, Crunchy Cons, a few years ago. I don't know if it quite set the world on fire, but it sounds like, you know, this cohort of culturally liberal conservatives still exists. Mm-hmm. And I guess what I'm curious about is, I mean, is all the conservatives in Washington Crunchy Cons? Do you all go to Whole Foods? Do you just live, you know, typical modern urban / suburban, you know, middle class, upper middle class lives, and it's just the way it is? Or is there some kind of divide in Washington where are there some conservatives that sort of look down upon you as cultural sellouts, that you go to Whole Foods and then buy organic and whatnot? You should be, you know, keeping it real and not abandoning your conservative roots.
You know, I would say there may be a small percentage that kid me about, you know, going to Whole Foods instead of Giant.
Just libertarian, I mean, really, what's the rebellion there?
Yeah, there's not a rebellion, I would say. Actually, I love. Oh, and get this, we go to farmers markets on the weekends.
Now you're really selling.
I know. And yes, DuPont, DC, the DuPont neighborhood of DC is the best farmers market in the entire area, and I love going to it. I think Matt could, you know. He's like, whatever makes me happy in that regard. But
now, if you choose to move to Northampton, where yes. I am, we have 3 separate farmers markets over the course of a week.
Oh wow!
For a town of about 30,000 people. But we have a Tuesday, a Wednesday, and a Saturday, and they all have different personalities. You know, the Wednesday one is like real old school, no frills. whereas the Tuesday one is like a liberal paradise with music acts and political petitions, kids running around, free, for a couple hours. There's wine tastings and goat cheese. It's not just arugula.
Right.
So we live in this intersection of we're in a kind of a semi-rural area in Western Mass, but it's a big college area, so it sort of attracts all kinds.
Yes.
And the farmers market movement is sort of really, and the whole local food movement's really been taking big root here. And I think it's sort of whereas you might have thought this would be kind of a conservative thing. You're supporting farmers, you're supporting rural America. It's become a big liberal thing because it's tied to the whole local food movement and rejecting corporate food and all that kind of stuff.
One, I like to go for the sense of community. I mean, the DuPont Farmers Market is unbelievable. It's huge. It's probably the biggest and the best in the DC area. But in Alexandria, we have at least 3 or 4 during the week as well. And I know Alexandria, Virginia is technically larger than Northampton, Massachusetts. But we enjoy going to the one on Saturday mornings. And I am from the great state of West Virginia. And at the Saturday morning farmers market in Alexandria, they have a great farm from West Virginia that brings in the produce that we like to go to that stand. And our 2-year-old loves to talk to everyone, as you can imagine, that he meets. So it's a great time, sense of community, and just, helping support local growers and being able to look at, buy something that's seasonal and knowing what you're getting.
Now, as a 2-income family,
Yes.
busy family, always juggling schedules. I mean, we have this problem. My wife isn't currently working, but she keeps very busy. She's currently running for office right now, locally. We struggle just to cook the food. We at one point we're doing a farm share. I don't know if you do farm shares in the big city. This is when you play a flat fee.
Right.
To one farm for the season, and then you go there once a week, and you get what you get.
Exactly.
And some farm shows are more flexible than others, but you're constricted in what you're going to get because what they grow, and it kind of recalibrates your eating decisions because instead of going to the supermarket and deciding what you're going to do every day, you're getting something, and then you're gonna figure out what you're gonna do with it after you get it.
Exactly.
So in some ways, it kind of clarifies your decision making. But when you're really strapped for time, there's a certain amount of prep involved with a whole week's load of produce dumped in your lap on a Friday, and it can be a struggle to get through it all and not waste it. And you do with 2 kids who are very picky about what they eat. You don't know what they're going to eat on a day-to-day basis. So we actually moved to. We're going to do a farm share again, starting for the summer and see how that goes. But we bagged our winter farm share because we were having too much of a tough time with it.
I can only imagine.
So my question to you is, how do you cook the food? How do you find the time to actually prepare the food that you're getting?
Well, good question. Before children, cooking was a hobby. I've actually enjoyed it. I researched recipes. I loved it. It was definitely a hobby and maybe a creative outlet for me is the way I would describe it. Post kids, there is not as much time, and I see it more as utilitarian necessity. But what I try to do is during when I'm waiting in a waiting room or maybe when I'm eating lunch, look up some recipes that I know I can manage that aren't, take too long, come up with a list of 2 or 3 for the next week, then make I can guess seasonally what's going to be available. I know radishes are available now, carrots, certain kale, spinach. I can sort of figure out by the season what could be available. Make my list and try, if in a perfect world, get to the grocery store Saturday morning, try to prep a meal and make a big meal over the weekend that I know I can make another 1 or 2 meals out of that for the week, and then try to do something easy in between those. So it is a little bit more of a stretch, and luckily we have, a nanny that will greatly take food if I know we're not going to be able to use it. And maybe she just does it with a smile on her face and like throws it away at the moment she gets to her house. But I'm like, oh, I have some extra carrots. Would you like to take them? I would hate for them to go bad.
And what's Matt doing here? Is Matt chipping in? Is Matt cooking anything?
Matt is great. I am someone who, when I get up in the morning, I can't just sort of sit on the sofa and have a cup of coffee. In a perfect world, I would go run, or at least do some type of moving and exercising. Matt is the creative person in this relationship. I'm sort of the details-oriented type A. So I usually feed Beckett. Beckett wakes up with a 5-month-old, sometimes between 4 and 5. I feed him, and then I get up and I try to go exercise if it's a great morning. And then Matt will get up with Burke, the 2-year-old, and sort of take care of him until I get home, which is usually around 6:30 to 7 from that. And I would say that that's one of his biggest contributions, because that is something I like to get out, clear my head, and work out in the morning. And for him to just get up and be with the kids is a huge help. I don't think I'd be a happy person if Matt did our cooking. So I take that on. I really take that on for us. He
can't even grill? Can't even grill once a week?
Well, I mean, we're getting into grilling weather now. We haven't had such great grilling weather in these last 5 to 6 months. But if I am not available to make food, I say, honey, take care of the takeout, please. Right. So you just find something that works that way, and that works for us. It really does. Matt is.
We lean on takeout probably far more than we should too. But just some days, you run out of time in the day. It's 5 o'clock and you got no option. That's all you got.
Exactly. Now I don't know how you have found. You have 2 girls. Have you found? But Matt is really, I think, for dads. Yes, there is a lot of help they can do when the baby's a newborn and an infant. But I think the more the child becomes interactive, the more the dads can help. Does that, right. or feel that they're helping? So I like to say that Burke is a mini Matt. He looks just like him, and I will probably have to keep him from wanting to be a full-time musician for a living. But Burke loves to play Dada's guitar, the harmonica. Matt is, believe it or not, a good musician and quite talented in that regard. And we have quite a few instruments in our house, and in nothing.
He was in a band, right?
He was in a band, several bands, and he still, likes to get out the guitar every now and then. And now that Burke has discovered we have a guitar, it would be a all-day thing for Burke if we allowed it to happen all day long, if we had the time for it. But Matt plays with him, shows him how to use the instruments. And toddlers are a challenge. As you know, they have more energy than you can ever imagine. But the joy that they express from learning something new is unbelievable.
Yeah. And
there's nothing that makes you feel better after a bad day at work than opening the door and hearing a little guy say, "Hi, Mama!" Like, you were the best thing ever that walked into that door. And, I don't know what Matt and I did before kids. We had a lot of free time, but it feels like a lot of wasted time.
You don't dream wistfully about those days?
It feels like, what were we doing? What was the purpose?
I think we were seeing movies. We actually saw movies on a regular basis.
Yeah. Oh, movies are out. With nursing every 3 hours, movies are out. I don't do movies at a theater. Are you kidding me? I just look at people like, oh. And I'm like, no. I can't go to a movie. The amount of planning that it takes to go to a movie, I'll see it on, our iTunes when it comes out on our Apple TV. I just don't do movies right now. It would be great, but we're not there yet. So Bill, how is it to be the dad? And I'm assuming you're a part-time campaign manager now? with your wife running?
Oh, I'm not the manager.
Not the
I'm
manager.
here
Okay.
for ad hoc consulting when needed, but this is her race, not mine. And so, but I mean, I'm there to she had to walk in the local LGBT Pride parade this weekend, so I was going to handle some baby duties during that, and assuming she does win, I'm sure I have to shoulder some childcare responsibilities when she has committee meetings and council meetings and such. So I'm prepared for all that, so I mean we've been juggling. I work at home.
Right.
I telecommute. GL, my wife has done other work where she's had other part-time work. She's had volunteer work she's done. She has never been just a housewife and nothing more. So we're constantly dealing with random scheduling, overlapping needs, various juggling. So throwing the cancel campaign and being counselor into the mix, won't be that big of a difference than what we're already generally dealing with. And while it's often kind of stressful to kind of not just have like clear blocks of time when you work and when you rest.
Right.
I much prefer just being around the kids, essentially all day. I mean, right now I got one kid in preschool, the other kid is taking a nap. So my mornings tend to be more focused than other parts of the day. But the fact that it's all kind of meshed together, while it has its drawbacks, I'd rather have that kind of lifestyle, the lifestyle of a typical dad, which is you go to work 9 to 5 and you just don't see your family at all, and then you get home, maybe you see your kids for like an hour or two, and then they're off to bed.
Right.
That strikes me as very unsatisfying, and I almost find it strange. I mean, obviously I'm the weird one here. Most dads do not have my situation, but I find it sort of odd that you could be a dad and not see your kids most of the day. That just strikes me as an. I mean, of course, we all get to that point when they're going to be in elementary school. But even then, for the kid gets off at 2:30, 3 o'clock. Other dads wouldn't see their kids till 5 or 6. I hopefully will see my kid for longer than that, and be more involved in their lives. So I hope it yields to a better relationship going forward. Perhaps it will backfire on me and they'll be sick of me faster. But so far, I feel like it's been good for the whole family.
Well, it's do you feel that since you are in politics and your wife is now running, do you ever feel like you want to give advice when you shouldn't?
I mean, when she wants advice, she'll ask. I'm not there to hover over her and dictate to her. I mean, I helped her work on her announcement statement, and I wrote a draft, and she was like, "This doesn't sound like me," and so she scrapped it and wrote what she wanted to write. I mean, I think she wanted the help to sort of kind of get the ball rolling with it.
Yes.
To see what a statement would look like, and then she saw it. She was like, "This sounds like you, not me. I'm not going to do this." So, and that's the way it should be, because she's not there as an empty suit to have someone else pour thoughts into. She's very much her own person. She's going to run it the way she wants. So, and she was a campaign manager for the person who's currently our city council president, so she knows how to run a campaign. And that's like, I don't know how to run a campaign. I'm not an organization person at all. I know how to write, but that's about it. So she knows how she wants to run it anyway. She doesn't have a great love of talking about herself, and she doesn't want to. And she's less interested in campaigning on her own accord than she is in being a counselor. So I think in certain respects, she likes to have me around to kind of start that process, because she's not naturally interested in doing that part of it. But at the end of the day, she's going to say what she wants to say and not be told what to say.
Oh, no. I was just curious, since both being in politics, I see sometimes. I mean,
I'm a little. You obviously don't know our situation. I am, I think, somewhat prominent locally, as a kind of national politics person who's not in Washington D.C. And and obviously we don't want her campaign to be seen like so that I am puppeteering, which is just not the case. And I think that's probably true. All sorts of, I think a lot of times with women politicians, there's a charge that there's a guy behind the scenes calling the shots, which is generally unfair.
No, it is.
And so I just want to be careful not to make it sound like inaccurately that I'm really running the show behind the scenes.
Oh, no. I've just found that with Matt and I, having both political jobs, we always talk about it. And sometimes in a relationship, you need to not talk about work. So I was wondering, with her running, with you being the columnist commentator, does it ever get sick of talking about politics, Bill?
She's probably more sick of it than I am. Okay. I'm probably the one who has a harder time talking about with what normal people talk about. But there's local politics and national politics are so separate.
Yes.
That it doesn't feel like one continual conversation. I mean, it's like we're both talking about our separate work lives. And I've dabbled in local politics too, so I'm not unfamiliar with what's going on. I served on an ad hoc committee recently, even though I've never run for office at all, let alone locally. But it's not like we are. I think a lot of Washington couples probably feel like you're all just in one big office with different departments, mm-hmm. and you're all and just talk about the same job all the time. And this is a little bit different than that. And I also I try to be aware that I have a tendency to ramble on about my own stuff, and so I try not to browbeat her with everything that's going on in my political life. And I have this podcast on the side that I essentially use as a way to unload my political thoughts and not burden them on my wife. So she can say, "Honey, I'll watch the podcast if I want to know." I know she doesn't watch the podcast, so. Well, then there you go. So what will you be doing for Mother's Day, Bill? Is it a big secret? I asked her on Monday. I mean, she's so wrapped up in the campaign and their parenting stuff that she's like, I haven't thought about it. And also our oldest kid's birthday is the end of the month, so that's a big project. So she said, I haven't even thought about what to do on Mother's Day. So I got nothing planned. I haven't bought a gift yet. I haven't made a brunch thing. We got a 15-month-old. So how do you schedule a brunch? We don't know when the nap's gonna be. It makes all scheduling very, very complicated. But as it is Wednesday, I think we got to figure that out pretty soon. I don't know if Matt has something surprise for you, or if you dictated to Matt what Mother's Day is going to be yet. I am type A, so you can only guess. But your plans are set? Yeah, we don't do. There are days we never go out to eat. Mother's Day is one of them. Valentine's Day. Because when you have one, they're always crowded, and two, you don't subject young children to that. Because they're going to explode and have meltdowns. So we'll just do something here at the house. It doesn't have to be, I don't need a whole, orchestrated day. And plus, I am doing the Mother's Day podcast of the DMZ, so... Isn't this the Mother's Day gift to me? Matt is usually the video, the writer. We can only have one person do TV in the relationship, so this is like my chance. I'm glad Matt got away with this being the present. That makes his life a lot easier. Exactly. If only I were so lucky. Was there anything else on this Mother's Day that is on your mind you want to talk about? Mother's Day. No, I think moms are special. Dads are special too. But I'm just... We have our day. Yeah, you have your day. And I'm just happy to be the mom of Burke and Beckett. They are two of the three loves of my life. So... Excellent. Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this. Sure, it was great. Do you want to plug the business, or or is that not necessary right now? No, not necessary. We're doing good. If anything, check out Save the Children and ISIS, and feel free to ask me or Matt, since people probably communicate with Matt. If you ever need any lactation consultants, I'm happy to make recommendations. Excellent. And Matt, I assume we'll be back next week here on the DMZ.
Yes.
Until then, have a great Mother's Day.
Thanks, Phil. Take care.
You too. You too.